Hello, everyone. Ambassador Terry, and we have an interesting Blue Monday changing the narrative together with my co host and uh, very, very good friend, Jenny Langren. We're going to talk to some very interesting people. And I know you're going to love these people and what they have to say. It's going to be fantastic. First, I'm going to start with another dear, dear, dear person, very dear to my heart and my family, and she's quite a person to be on this program. And we got her luckily at the right time. Stina Marie. Hi, Stina. Lovely to have you, my dear.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you, as I am with the rest of my guests, really. And so um, I'm going to, myself, my background with Blue Monday, I suffered with self sabotage and depression and different things almost all of my life until I discovered a question and answer sequence that stops that kind of stuff. And we're working on getting it across the world. It's called repetitive behavior cellular regression. And you can see that on my website. Look it up here on LinkedIn and you'll get to us. And my co host is ran with me for two or three times now. We've co hosted, and she's an amazing behavioral scientist, Jenny Langren. Hey, Jenny.
Hi, Terry. I'm so happy we're doing this.
I am too.
Throughout the year, I coach and counsel about 5 people daily. So I know firsthand that this time of year is rough for many of us. And it's just such a good time to put us under that really good flow of encouragement and the real story and the voices of overcoming. And I know that our good friend Stina is one of those. And I don't know that you support your clients tremendously, Stina. And I know that you are so good at self-connection and the things that are so valuable throughout this time of year when there's a lot of pressure on us. So I'd love to hear from
It really is. Stina.
Yes, I am just reminded that there's this desire in all of us to go in and to hibernate and to be cozy and to be comforted. And I think that connecting with ourselves and connecting with other people is such a big part of that, being able to slow down and, find some clarity and some hope while the sun makes its way back to us.
Lovely, lovely. Well, here in North America, we're doing the winter thing, and it is abnormally cold across Canada and the US right now. Not that far away from us, we have minus temperatures. Not unheard of around here, but not for a very long time. And so, that helps to complicate um, uh, midwinter depression and post holidays blues. Blue Monday kind of came from the UK, and they want to recognize a day of mental health support. For people who goes through that. They're getting the bills from Christmas and all of that kind of thing, and they can really take some serious nosedives. Do you have anything, Stina, that just kind of comes to mind along that line, that possibly midwinter stuff?
Mm. I know for me, the biggest part of support right now in my life is learning to open up to even receive support. Because especially when you're in a really dark and tough time, you can just feel so isolated. And there can also be a lot of shame and feeling like this is all my fault and I have to figure it out and, just kind of grin and bear it or grit, have the grit to get through it. And it just puts us in that state of pushing away other people or just not reaching out and letting people know how we're doing. And so for me, the biggest thing is I've made kind of a vow to myself that I'm going to be honest with the people that I trust and that are closest to me about how I'm really doing and what's really going on for me. Because you just never know who might have a resource to offer, whether that's financial time, a listening ear, company. And I just think it's really powerful to at least open ourselves up and ask and be honest about where we're at with the people that are close to us.
Yes,
I
very
love
good.
that. That is our shared humanity. That is the bridge between us. I know so many times in my life when I've thought about sharing something or thought about being vulnerable with someone that I actually trusted and made the decision not to, and it just created that void and that experience of isolation, as you say. And every time also that I made the decision to actually be human and share and open up, it just made it clear to me that I'm not alone and it is us and we are in it together. Is there any other tips, Tina, that you would send along the viewers how to break that isolation and dare to open up from that vulnerable place?
Yeah, I mean, tactically, like just a simple text saying, do you have some time to hold space for me, to someone that, you do trust. I feel like it sounds so small, but it can be so difficult to just overcome those feelings and the feeling that, oh, I can't do it all alone or I can't handle this. And to be really gentle with yourself and watch the words that you are saying to you and how you're kind of beating yourself up internally about being in the situation that you're in. Because I've said before, like the worst thing about our worst days is actually how we treat ourselves. So keeping in mind that, the way that we treat ourselves when we're in those moments can either make it worse or at least make it plateau, even if it doesn't immediately get better.
Well, I want to honor your time commitment to us today. Thank you so much, my dear friend.
Thank you.
And it was just wonderful. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you both. Bye-bye.
Now we're going to get way out there. We're going clear to the Eastern Mediterranean of the world, and a recent friend and colleague from the What Are You Doing tribe, Alex Panayotou. Welcome.
Hi, Terry. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Alex. Welcome.
And
well, you kind of been listening to us talk, so perhaps some things have come to mind.
Absolutely. Things always come to mind. First of all, we're proving now that even when we feel alone, we don't have to be alone, despite the gaps and the time differences and the distance we might have between us. And I find it a very positive thing that we come together for something as important and as profoundly important as this is. Depression, thoughts of suicide, these really tough topics that people don't want to, the words that some people don't even want to say, it freezes people, it makes them feel incredibly alone. And we don't have to be alone. Asking support, reaching out, being authentic, and being brave enough to speak openly about these things is really, it's up to us, and we have to do it. We have to make the first step, and we will always find there will be more people out there to support us than we know. In my past, I went through very tough times. I came through, fortunately, I found my own path, and I came through paths through difficulties that maybe some other people might not have got through, which is one of the reasons why in my work, part of my work, working one-on-one with people, I find it so gratifying and such a pleasure to be able to support people. And it doesn't really have a time of year. There are times of year like now that it gets even tougher, but depression and struggling doesn't have a date, and we have to be out there supporting and reaching out ourselves whenever that is.
Great.
I love that.
We don't clock in 9 to 5. Depression's there. Wakes you up in the middle of the night. It interrupts your walk as you're walking the dog, and everything else seems to be going wonderful. And all of a sudden just in a funk. Like, where did that come from? Jenny, you started to say something?
Yes, I acknowledge you, Alex, for also sharing that you have a story of your own of growing through and overcoming. And it's also so empowering that when we share those stories and when we ourselves, take that leap and open up, it's like we're not just freeing ourselves, we're freeing everyone around us to allow themselves to do the same. So just one person reaching out is not just one person. That's one person freeing everyone in that room to be open and vulnerable and authentic and reconnect. So thank you for also sharing your own journey.
That was fabulous.
And I find working one-on-one with individuals, and one of the areas I work on is burnout prevention, but also burnout recovery. And this is what we don't realize. One of the results of burnout is depression and potentially suicide through people who might not normally be struggling with such things. And it's a very difficult thing, and you've both mentioned it, to actually get out there and speak about it. So if I could offer one tip, regardless of where the darkness is coming from and what brought us to that point, is one is reaching out and sharing. And then the other is proactively trying to make positive changes in our lives, in our careers, and sometimes even in the people around us, because it's not enough just to share. We have to, and again, we need to reach out and we need to take proactive steps to make these things happen. But we're never alone unless we choose to make ourselves alone. And there are always tools and there are always people out there who can support us.
Absolutely. If you can do anything, get out in a crowd or just get outside where there are other people and smile at somebody. Things start changing. Your chemistry changes. Very positive things happen. I often say start your day by making your bed, because it's a triumph. It's something you've completed in your life for that day. And it changes your mindset, and it doesn't have to be that big a thing, but just get out of the house. Do not be by yourself, because there's nobody to support you then. Just that talk inside. And that's not the talk you want to hear. Alex, thank you so much. I want to honor your time. It's late there out in the Eastern Mediterranean and the beautiful country of Greece. And thanks again for coming with us.
And thank you both for having me. It's been a real honor and a pleasure. And thank you too, Jenny.
Thank you, Alex.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now. We're still in the Greece area of the world. I see he's clicked in. I don't know if he's having camera issues or not. Theophanos Barboglis. He may pop up on stage. We don't know, but there he is. Theophanos.
Hello.
Great to see you.
Great to see you all. You when you announced the topic for today, it was a challenge for me because I don't specialize on Mondays. But I started looking at research that's been done on this. And I have some findings that are quite interesting. In the Journal of Clinics, the British journal, Monday is the day with the most heart attacks. Okay. Ooh. But to be honest, most probably Sunday is responsible for that. Right? We get the heart attack after the party we had on the weekend, right?
Yeah.
They found that there is an issue with sleep disruption. Health, we start to put ourselves in order in terms of, I'll start to exercise in the gym, I'll start to plan healthy food, etc., or quit smoking. And we do that on Monday. All these things we do on Monday. But also Blue Mondays are also related to a sense of loss of freedom. It's a reminder that we are a corporate slave, right? Let's say, as the quote goes. So in that sense, also it has this thing, but definitely it's a start in life. And I would say that Monday itself is not the problem, because for me, when my weekend goes really well and I really express myself and I really have a healthy, not only physically but emotionally and mentally, good weekend, I relax. And when I relax, I need to do something, and I'm happy to go to work on Monday. I mean, if life is a train, and Monday on its own is not the problem. It's how we approach Monday, and quite often it's a very nice thing to approach. One last thing that I want to add that crossed my mind is that with online possibilities that exist, online work, actually work that is not even time relevant. I mean, I'd be working at 3 a.m. and send it in, and it's okay, right? It's very different. It could be Sunday, it could be Tuesday, it could be any day, any time. This Monday, Blue Monday thing we have for all these years may start to evaporate a little bit. And our life will be more, instead of days, it will be more of a sequence of times and events and activity. So that's what I brought up on the table today. That's it.
How intriguing, Theophanis. You always bring something special. What comes to me is that throughout the weekend, we're relaxed. We're doing the things that give us joy. We're doing the things that inspire us and excite us. And then for some reason, we've learned, or we think we've learned, that we need to do something different throughout the week, that it's like back to the hard work, back to the hard system of things. And it's such a reminder that we get to just ease into our week and keep, living from our pleasure list, as Linda would say. And that is life. Thank you.
It's a really great point there. Back in my day when I was a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5er, working in an office in my corporate days, Monday wasn't such a fun fun day of the week for me, because at the time I was working with people I didn't really want to work with. And I felt that I had to keep that job because the pay was incredible. And it would possibly raise me up in the light of corporate people to be recruited. That's what kept me going. That's what started my day on Mondays, was that thought that maybe I can get recruited, because one of these days I'm just going to have to quit because I hate it here. I lucked out. I had a recruiter reach out to me after I did completed a keynote speech on what my company was doing for an upcoming project. And I was recruited to another corporate job that was amazing. So, some days it's just take another step, and be present with that and what it could look like for you. Theophanis, I want to honor, it's very late at night there, and you were so gracious. I so enjoy having you on What Are You Doing and different things that we've shared the stage with. Just fantastic. And I look forward to doing some more with you in the future, my friend.
Thank you so much. See you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for joining us.
Now we're going to bounce back to America. We're just all over the place today, Jenny. Isn't that fun?
It is.
And it's like we're all just talking to each other, matter-of-factly across the desk, and that is a delight. Now, I have a recent person that shared the stage with me with a couple of other guests that'll be on here later today around grief in the holidays back in December. And I was very impressed with a lot of different things that she said and what work she's doing around what is around the theme of Blue Monday. And I asked her to come and be our guest, and I was very honored to have her say yes. So I'm going to bring in Lisa McFarland. Welcome back, Lisa. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Are you kind of listening to the thought process and how it's rolling? Perhaps you could talk to us about something that's maybe been in your life or the life of your clients. You know, you do a lot of grief work. Hint, hint, ladies and gentlemen, grief work. And perhaps you could talk about that.
Sure. You know, the topic of Blue Monday, it completely resonates because as you were sharing, Terry, you know, I worked in corporate for quite a while. And since I retired from that environment about 3.5 years ago, I still trip on Sundays about sort of trip over the upcoming Monday. And I myself, not so much related to grief, but just as a matter of scheduling, am very curious about my own response to the calendar days, what they mean, and how to disarm the training that is so deep within me that I have these reactions to the week starting. So it's a great conversation to have and a good place to look because obviously I don't want to have those responses to Monday because Mondays are fresh and fantastic. You know, it's a new start and, you know, we can get sometimes more done on a Monday when, you know, before things actually kind of pick up. So that is certainly something that's come across my radar. You know, in the grief space, I would say what we're mostly working on is just one of the basic things that I address with folks, and it has been my own journey from my own profound losses, is just this idea that it's all okay to be here and allowing and inviting our grief to have a place at the table, not just certain days, but every day. So that kind of folds into what we're talking about, which is there's no good time for your heart to feel heavier than normal kind of thing. And what I did for 2.5 decades was to really decide this isn't a good time to feel like crap. So I'm going to save that cry. I'm going to save that reaction, that trigger, whatever's happening. I'm going to put it on a shelf and I'll come back to it. Of course, that's not what happens. The shelf comes down on top of us, usually when we're in an environment where we want to enjoy ourselves. Like maybe we show up at a wedding and we suddenly feel like we can't move, or this happens to me sometimes if, you know, when I go to church, if I haven't sort of dealt with my grief, it feels safe there. So one of the big things that we're coaching on is just trying to be okay with grief having a seat at the table. And actually, over time, we can learn to invite it to actually join us. And that's how we regain some of that control instead of feeling like it could kind of, you know, we call them grief gremlins, but they can show up anytime. And that makes us feel even more vulnerable and scared. So sort of being curious about this grief and what it means and how it connects us to our loved ones and what that relationship looks like now. Those are all things that are helping us move through the space of our pain.
Great, great. Beautiful way of saying that. Jenny?
Thank you, Lisa. What comes to mind to me is that this is how I would treat my best friend. Yeah. This is a loving relationship. And it's like, it just comes back to me when you're sharing anything, any experience, any emotion, you know, and that's okay. I am feeling this way and that's okay. Just being in that complete acceptance, especially throughout the darker time of the year when, you know, nature is resting and that's okay. And we get to as well.
Yes, I agree with that. This sort of gestational period between winter and spring, that's real for us too, because we're part of nature. We're parts of, you know, we're like the tree that's out there. We have the same life force in a sense.
We do.
Same life force. I like that analogy. You know, we were talking earlier how, you know, what we're saying, ladies and gentlemen, is sure easy to say here because we're vocalists and we're communicating it. And when you're in the funk, you're there, you're going, yeah, you don't know what I'm dealing with. You don't know my world. Yes, that's true, but we've walked beside you on the path. So even though we haven't been inside your head or inside your journey, we care that much to speak up out here today and let you know that there's some people thinking about you, and there's some ways to get help that you may not have known yet. There's people can hear a message over and over and over again, but until they're ready to receive the message, they don't really hear it. So you're going to hear it over and over again from my colleagues and guests today who are just wonderful, wonderful people. Lisa, thank you. I honor your time with us today. And we'll probably do something again.
Ambassador Terry, Jenny, it's a pleasure. Namaskaram. Happy New Year. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye for now.
Well, there was 4 of us in December who talked about grief in the holidays, and the other 2, along with Lisa, are here now, and I'm excited because I can go 3 grief people right in a row because the message is so similar and yet different, just a little bit different, like I was talking to before. Now, my friend and colleague and great, what are you doing guest is stepping up on stage, Carol Bannons. Hi, Carol. Thanks for coming.
Oh, hi, Terry. Hi, Jenny. So nice to be here again. Seeing you again. Yeah. So
you've been listening along, and you heard Lisa and I set you up.
I did.
Talk about grief. This is grief too. People who get into the funk, this is grief. You are grieving your life. There's a lot to be said about that, and that's your world. Also, ladies and gentlemen, for 3 days, our live platform has been having some issues keeping tied in with LinkedIn. So if you see me buzz in and out, my little circle gets on there. Just bear with it. That's the best we've got, and it's a lot better than it was 2 days ago. So, not to interrupt, Carol, please go ahead.
Okay, that's okay. So Blue Monday, first of all, I have to admit, I didn't know about Blue Monday. So like one of your other guests, I had to look it up. But what it does for me is it opens the conversation up about how can we support people, but how can we support ourselves? And as I was thinking about this and about grief, one of the things that my go-to thing is meditation. I love meditation because I think we have to teach our nervous system a sense of safety. And if we can create that inner sense of safety, if we have that resilience to deal with things that come up, then perhaps the Blue Mondays aren't as often, or the Blue Weeks aren't as often. But like anything, it needs practice, doesn't it? You can't just say, oh, I don't feel good today, I'll meditate now. It's a practice, isn't it? So for me, I think that's one of the things that I think can be super helpful, using the free apps, Insight Timer, Calm, Headspace. There's so much out there to support us with that. But the other thing that I find helpful is, of course, is reaching out for support. We need support when we're sad, and we need the right support. We need people who understand. And of course, not many people really understand one's grief unless they've been through it. And it's challenging to get that support. So you can feel isolated and alone. So hence we have to build up that resilience and that ability to communicate our needs. And I think get in touch with our emotions. Just as Lisa was saying, we're so on the same page. We have to acknowledge that grief is normal. It's an emotion that we're allowed to feel, that we should feel, and we cannot push them away. I know Lisa did and I did, and it didn't do either of us any good. We eventually had to deal with it because it just grows. So I think when we're feeling blue, when we're feeling down, if we have coping mechanisms that we can turn to, that's helpful. The support, the getting outside, obviously, when it's grey, it's lovely and bright here in Canada, but it's minus 27. So I just look outside the window. But getting outside, moving our bodies, eating well, all of these things that we know. But as you said, Terry, when you're in that funk, when you're down there, you can't even think of what to do. So having a list that you can look at and just go, oh, I could do that. I think that I find helpful for my grief clients. Here are some suggestions. Break down tasks into tiny little steps so you feel you've achieved something. You're not just overwhelmed with the whole day's worth of stuff. I mean, there's lots of stuff we can talk about here. And I'm just blabbing on, so feel free to.
So good, Carol. There's so many good tips and such good filter for getting through those days. And I love that it comes down to like, I will risk this feeling good, you know, I will risk that this will be joyful and make me, you know, feel that light, and that's enough. And it's, you know, it's not squashing anything. It's really growing through it and learning through it. And it's so natural. Grief is, like you say, one of our basic emotions. So we get to be there. We get to be human. And so many good tips. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And I think, you know, the trouble with grief is often we feel guilty about allowing any joy in. And we've got to allow those moments, those little, like you said, a smile, Terry, a smile at a cashier or something. It changes your physiology. It changes theirs. There's so much that we can do if we know what to do. And I would say another person I like to meditate with is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I love his meditations. You can find them on YouTube, guys. And he really talks about feeling the gratitude, feeling the joy. And I know if you're down, you don't feel like it. But when somebody's giving you a guided meditation, you have something to follow. And it changes how you feel when you've done that. And then you can approach your day with a little bit more control.
Very lovely, my friend. And like I name dropped onto Lisa, I think there's a future discussion along this line here in the very near future. Thank you so much for stepping in.
Oh, you're so welcome, and thank you for having me.
Bye for now. Okay, but not least is Suzanne Jabor. Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Good to have you.
You know, again, ladies and gentlemen, back last month we did a Grief in the Holidays, and all three of these ladies really brought to the fore some fantastic information, and I knew that it would be of value, and sure enough, here it is today for the Blue Monday event. So, Suzanne, why don't you take us down the street of your clients and those kinds of things? What's coming through for you?
Yeah, I love everything that Lisa and Carol said. It's such great information. And I want to riff first off of something that Carol said. She was talking about all of the different things that we can do as grievers. And my challenge actually goes out to the people supporting us. Because those of us who've been in, you know, that despair and that depression, it is so hard to get yourself up off the couch. It's so hard to make a healthy meal. It's so hard to access resources. And we need people in our lives to step forward and say, hey, can I come and get you and we'll go for a walk? Can I come and get you and we'll go do something? Do you have a favorite recipe I could cook for you? There's so many things we can do to help each other. And I loved in the graphic that you shared about the event, Terry, that sense of connection. That's what we need. We need witnesses. We need connection. And it's a big ask to ask someone who's in, intense depression to be the ones to reach out. And I think when we're feeling healthy and we're feeling, centered, we can be the ones to do the outreach. So that was the first thing I wanted to do, is to just encourage people listening to reach out over time, over years, to say, how are you doing today? How are you doing in this moment? Couldn't we go for a walk? It's beautiful out, and help us to do all of those healthy things that we know are good for us, but sometimes just feel impossible. And the other thing that really struck me when preparing for this particular Blue Monday, the third one in January, is to just let grievers know that it's okay if you are really struggling with January. we don't talk enough about how different times of the year impact our grief differently. And so many of us prep so well for what we're going to do over the holiday season because it's so intense, as we talked about in that great conversation in December, Terry. And then January comes and everybody around us is talking about this amazing new year and all these opportunities and all their, intentions and their word of the year and their, those things that I have never made for years. What do we make? Resolutions. Thank you. Grief brain is real. And what's really hard for grievers is I look at it, and especially that first one after my son died, all I could think of was, I don't want to be in a new year. I want to still be in the year that he was in with me. And that transition to a new year, that reminder from the calendar, whether it's last year or 10 years ago, that time when your loved one was here with you on the planet is a step further away, can be really hard to navigate. So if you're struggling with January because it feels particularly griefy, all of that to just say yes. And that's normal. And as Carol said, with all of the skills we have with support and connection, one breath at a time, we can navigate January.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for hopping in here. And I look forward to us guys getting together again and doing some more in the future. Again, thank you very much.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me, Jenny and Terry.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Now, I promised this wonderful person in New Zealand that I would get her on the middle of the night there, and she was so gracious to hop on and talk about depression and Blue Monday. And welcome, Dallas. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's so lovely. It's such a wonderful thing. My first live for 2025, and it's with two incredible people that I highly respect. So hi to you both.
Hi, Dallas. I always love reconnecting with you. So Dallas, when I know the work that you do, and I know that you are also about creating that supportive culture. For example, in our company, to be supportive for people who are experiencing the blues. Is there anything coming up for you? I mean, I know the work that you do for the people around us. Like, how can we create that culture that is supportive to anyone going through experiencing the depression or possibly even suicidal thoughts? What's coming up for you?
The first thing I'd say is do what you guys are doing. Like, you're leading by example. It's talking about it, bringing it to the forefront, normalizing it. One of the earlier speakers, talked about that grief is a natural emotion, and it is. But from a society point of view, we've kind of learnt to just get on with it and not bring the mask to work. Don't bring the emotions. Don't let people know that you're not coping. And the big thing that I've encouraged people that I work with over the last few years is that's poppycock. You're better off. You'll connect with your staff and with everyone else a lot more and in a lot deeper way if you actually just let them. You don't have to tell them your whole sob story, but you can come in and say, actually, I'm struggling today. I'm having a bit of a bad day. There's some stuff happening at home, so I might be a bit flat. And again, you don't have to announce it to the entire company either. You talk to your close colleagues about that, the ones that you engage with the most, the ones that will notice it the most, because invariably, humans being the way that we're wired, if you don't share that and then you don't react in a certain way to those staff members during that day, they'll probably blame themselves. They'll think they've done something wrong. And then that triggers their whole journey of actually feeling bad about themselves and feeling down, because we're all going through our own struggles. And not to say it's doom and gloom all the time, it's not. But the reality is, I think I read something Linda had posted recently, about suicidal thoughts, that it was something along the lines that we've all had them. And if you say that you haven't, you're lying. And I fundamentally agree with that. It's absolutely true. I've had them. I can put my hand up. If you sat there in a room and said, okay, has anyone had any suicidal thoughts? Has anyone felt down enough that they kind of went, oh, maybe? You know, it didn't go further for me than that. I couldn't. The part that stopped me was that transforming that into action was I didn't want to hurt the people that I loved. I knew I could see the hurt that would put them through. Now, that shows that I wasn't as deep in depression as some people get, right? That's what that message tells me now later in life. But at that time, it was still a thought that came into my head to go, actually, would the world be better off if I wasn't here, since I'm feeling so bad about myself? I'm feeling so bad in this moment. That's a real thing for all of us. We go through ups and downs. We struggle through jobs, like you've said, Terry. We stick at jobs that we don't really like going to. You were really lucky and blessed that you got the opportunity to springboard from that environment into one that you loved. It isn't the reality for everyone. So sometimes springboarding out of that environment is the best option for them, but they can't see the wood for the trees.
Wonderful, wonderful. Dallas, I want to honor the time there and your commitment to us today. Thank you so much for coming. It's very heartfelt. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you for inviting me and including me. I've loved this session. I've loved listening to all of your guest speakers.
Thank you. Bye for now. I'm going to step to Mr. Scotland. Who? Mike Stevenson. What a story, what a speaker, what a storyteller and author. And my friend, Mike Stevenson, thank you for coming. I'm so glad you could make it.
Always my pleasure, Terry. I've been listening to the speakers for the last wee while, and I mean, I would draw a distinction because I'm a man, and men are different. Doesn't matter how we look at it. We experience things slightly differently. We have never reached out to our friends. That's quite a common thing for men to experience, because we feel that the best thing to do is to go into some kind of hibernation. So you have to find your own personal strategies. And I've done that, and I've done it successfully. I mean, I'll be 75 in June. So that's quite a long time to have, suffered the ups and downs. And I've had some real downs, and I've been at that position where I thought the world would be better off without me. Or actually, I'd be a bit more selfish in that I'd be better off without the world. I think that's the way I would phrase it. But, I have discovered things that I know will make me smile. And it's simple things. There's a tree, a bush just along the road. And when the birds are all singing in there, I feel cheered up. The sound of bird song, the smell of coffee, the smell of baked bread, the sound of rain dripping on the leaves, babies laughing. I mean, I've got a nursery just quite close to me, and I just open my French windows and I can hear them laughing and playing. That really cheers me up. The other thing, wherever I am in terms of my mood, I will never inflict on other people. And I know that sounds virtuous, but I will always smile at people. I will always see it as my responsibility to lift other people. And I've done that consistently throughout my life. And I think that comes from, being treated quite badly as a young person, where I felt that I wasn't valued, I wasn't significant, that I was ignored, that I wasn't even noticed, that I didn't have a name, I didn't have a status. And I found that, you can do it in a reverse way. If you smile at people, generally you get a smile back. And you know that by talking to people, you can make their day. If you make their day, you've also made your own day. That's how I deal with it. And I don't do meditation. I've got ADHD at quite a high scale. So I've found it very difficult to follow any of these disciplines. I've had to deal with it in my own way. And my own way is to work it through myself and to enjoy all those sensory things that lift me. And they do lift me. I mean, if I'm in the depths of depression and I hear a baby laughing, I will be lifted immediately. I don't feel a sense of regret that I'm not happy. I feel a happiness that that baby has got one emotion at the time. Absolute joy, and the laughter of a baby is the most pure thing you'll ever hear. So I get through things like that. But I remember my dad said, the first thing you've got to do is tidy your own bedroom. So there's an element of that as well, doing little things around you to make your home environment a bit more benign, a little less threatening, removing those things that remind you. I've got drawers full of paperwork, for example. Out of sight, out of mind. That suits me.
Lovely.
Lovely.
Sorry, that sounds like a bit of a speech.
Yes, the word that comes to me is optimistic. Mike, you are never, there's no toxic positivity. It is always meeting people exactly where they are and putting the light and shedding the light on the opportunities ahead. I appreciate that about you, and thank you for joining us so much.
And I thank you for joining us, dear friend, and we'll talk soon. Thanks again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. We are all over the world, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm loving it. We're going to jump to the eastern seaboard here a little bit, down in the frozen south of Florida. Well, it's not really frozen, but it's pretty cold there today. John Chapelier. Hi, John. How's it going?
Welcome, John.
Oh, my God. It's fine. It's fine here. It's funny, when I first moved here, it was, 50 outside, and people are walking around in Michelin kind of jackets and puffed up and hats on and gloves. And I'm thinking, it's 50 degrees outside. What is the matter with you people? And of course, now it's 30 degrees outside, and I've got 2 Michelin jackets and a hat 20 years later, and it seems quite cold. Except while you guys were talking about depression and issues like that, and people were talking about ways in which they deal with it. One of the ways, I know Mike was talking about babies, and I have a tendency to, I don't know why I'm looking for my dog because he's never behind me when I need him to be, but Hitch was just outside in the yard and had no concerns with the fact that he's chewing on a bone, he's happy as can be, his tail's wagging all over the place, and I step outside and it's like, oh my God, this is so terrible. And it's a matter of, aren't we going to let this stuff affect us, or are we just going to go and live? And that was something for me, is this learning to let this guide me rather than this guide me, has made all the difference in the world. I mean, it's funny. I just did I don't know how I got sucked into this, but I just started doing storytelling here in the local theater with a couple of other guys that are men and women who are just decided to tell stories, and said, hey, you do some stuff, come on along. And I told a story about one of the worst days of my life when I came home, and it was similar to what Mike was talking about just a minute ago. And because I walked in the door, and my 3-year-old son didn't care that it was the worst day of my life. He didn't care anything other than Dad was home. So let's play, just like we do every day. And about 10 minutes later, I'm laying on the floor, laughing so hard, tears are running down my face, and my son is up over my head like this, just looking at me and laughing and laughing and laughing. And I'm thinking, his laughter went through me like the way a jacuzzi works on knotted up muscles. I mean, it was amazing that, and that's really sort of the genesis of the concepts in the Daily Six, which was, if I can feel like this any day I want, especially on the most horrible day I can imagine, I can feel like this anytime I want to, because it's all guided from in here, not what's out here. So I've learned over time, if my issues are out here, then probably my problems are here. And so I go back to meditation, or I go back to some mindfulness practices, and it just lifts a way or the other. I mean, I've been struggling with clinical depression for, I don't know, I think when I first diagnosed this, I had a full head of hair and I was about 4 inches taller. So, I've been worn down to this nub of a man before you by simply living as long as I have. But the thing I've learned is medication or therapy or whatever you want to do, it still matters what you're doing in here. And I don't think you can medicinally lift this up that much. I mean, I think unless you want to get Valiumed up or something so that you're really not paying attention to reality. I mean, the way antidepressants work these days is not to make you feel better. It just makes you feel this way. You know, it doesn't bring you up here, but you can even get depressed when you're on antidepressants. But the thing that's kept me stable is looking at how I can make this better to stay balanced and centered so that I'll be of value to people who are out here. And then as my value increases out here, my sense of good sense of self-worth goes up.
And so such an encouraging journey of coming back to serving other people, which can never be done out of fear. Right, John?
Right.
When you're in service, always from a place of gratitude and love.
Such
encouragement. And
you can be afraid. You can't, and it's not out of fear, but you can be fearful when you go up to somebody. You know, it's like the little kid going up to Santa Claus. He's scared to death until he gets up on the lap, and all of a sudden he's laughing at Santa Claus. It's the same kind of thing. I mean, we approach things we don't understand. I think the natural inclination is fear, but we have to put that aside and go, but that's not the way I'm going to behave today. Today I'm going to behave with love. And so love is fearless. Let's go ahead and give this a shot. And what's the worst case scenario is I get a no, or somebody, you know, or I walk away the same way I walked in. So it's not, you know, I'm not going to, nobody's decapitating me because I said good morning to somebody. You know, I used to have a line, Terry's line about, I used to say, walk down the street and smile at people. What's the worst that can happen? You're going to freak them out. That's the worst that can happen. They're going to go, what's this guy smiling at me for? There's going to be something wrong. But I don't care. I still smiled. It was, you know, it's all I can control is what's going on around here. I can't control how their reaction is. Nothing. But it shouldn't affect me. You know, I can still smile at somebody. I used to joke about, if you're in an elevator, try not to push the closed door button. Try really hard, because that's the button almost everybody pushes right away. Close the door, close the door. You know, how about opening the door and looking outside and see if there's anybody you might want to get on the elevator with you?
Right. John, thank you so much. I'm also the timekeeper.
I'm sorry, Terry. I rambled on the whole thing. I'm sorry.
Thanks again for coming, John. I really appreciate it.
Glad I could help contribute and talk through the whole thing. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
That was brilliant.
We continue our round the world stints with a good friend and colleague and a couple of time author from Norway, Dorit Carlson. Dorit, welcome, my friend.
Hi,
welcome, Dorit.
Nice to see you. Hi, Jenny, my neighbor.
Hey, my neighbor, my Nordic friend. Always feels so good to be in the same room as you.
So you have some time to listen in, Dorit. What little tidbits are you bringing to us today?
Well, what came up for me was I've been very depressed twice in my life, and I actually went a little bit further than that. I went to my childhood. Something my mom did every winter that I didn't kind of realize until I got older, because living here in Norway means that winters are quite dark. And when you're surrounded by darkness and hardly see the sun at all, you get kind of blue right away. And my mom used to always rent these tanning beds. And she would set them up in a spare bedroom at home, and she would always rent the cheapest kind, the one that was just the top. So you had to spend twice as long because you had to tan one side and then you had to flip over. And she did that to kind of maximize the warmth and the light that we felt, you know? She could have done it so we could be in and out in 15 minutes, but we needed like an hour because it was shit quality, to be honest. But I remember that fondly because that time that I could spend there. Of course, with sunscreen on, we take care. But, you know, that was kind of like a little slice of heaven. It was warm, it was sunny, it was like in the middle of winter, I could get a time out. And that was something that came up when I had my first depression. I had a postpartum depression, and I didn't get the chance to do that because I had 5 kids. So there was no room for me or time for me to go and take that for myself. But what happened was that my sister, she's 11 years older than me, and she saw that I was struggling. So she came and she just took me for walks. I didn't have dogs at the time. I was 2 years without dogs, and maybe that's why I got depressed. I don't know. But I haven't dared trying to be without them in case it happens again. But I remember she just showed up at my door and said, come on, put on some clothes. We're going to go for a walk in the forest. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I hadn't been outside for like 6 months, unless to go to the doctor and stuff. But she dragged me along, and we had a great time, and we could just chit chat about anything. And she kept doing that, like twice a week. She just showed up and she said, come on, we're going out. And that's something that I really recommend people doing if they have someone in their life struggling, or if you have the willpower in your depression to do it yourself, to change up your day, to just do something different than you usually do. And when we had done that for a couple of weeks, I just said to John that my husband, I need a dog. I need a dog to get me out, because this is clearly not working. I can't live without it. And we adopted a 5-year-old Rottweiler girl named Emma, so I could get out and do the things that I needed for my mental health. Yeah, so change up your day.
I love how the dogs became the light in your life, Dorrit. And if people are not, looking for a dog, and there will be other things that will help them reconnect with their values and, what is truly serving them and encouraging them on that path.
What
So just
brings
being
you
open to
joy?
that.
I mean, it can be whatever. Listen to music or
being open to that inspiration.
Yeah.
That is
listen to an
wonderful.
audio book. Just get your head out of that loop.
Yeah, unconditional love
Yeah.
from those critters, and it can be a parakeet, it can be
Great work,
anything.
guys. I
And
mean, it's so important to talk about it.
Thank you, my dear friend. It's late in the evening there. You probably want to get some dinner at some point. Thank you again for coming, my friend. That was terrific that you were here.
Thank you, Dorrit.
Well, we're keeping the movement flowing here. And I've got a friend that I met a few years ago, and just after lockdown started, in a thought leaders group, and we have grown to be quite good friends. He's a international author, coach, speaker, and my friend, Khan Apostopoulos. Hello, Coach Khan. How are you, my friend?
How are you, Ambassador Terry? How are you? Jenny, how are you, my friend?
I am splendid. So good to see you again, Con.
Likewise. I've been listening into the conversations with a lot of interest, and seeing all of the comments and how people have responded, whether they are professionals dealing with grief or helping others deal with grief, or they are professionals like me that are more focused on the coaching, on the development side, on the skill building side. It seems that we all have our experiences with the blues, with sadness, with depression, with all of these emotions. And I'm no therapist. I'm the first one to raise my hand and put that out there as a disclaimer. But in my work, trying to prepare people to build mental strength, to build that capacity to be able to deal with life changes and resilience, I found it fascinating that there are so many lessons for us to take. even before we get to that point where we feel ourselves sinking into the sadness, into the depression, into the difficulties and the challenges, there's a lot of work that we can do for ourselves and for others. There's work that we can do beforehand, and there's a roadmap, and a roadmap that I turn back to often, and I use in my teachings and everything else. And it's important for us to understand the work starts with us. We need to be doing more to take care of ourselves. We need to get beyond the sense that self-care is selfish. It's not. We cannot hope to help others if we are not in a good place. And so that becomes an essential starting point for us. Start with ourselves. Start with making sure that we show kindness and care for ourselves. Be aware of what's happening around us, how we're feeling. Stay connected to our emotions. So many of us, we are very, very quick to characterize emotions as positive or negative. They are not. It's how they make us react or what they do for us that is important for us to take into consideration. There is an expression that I've developed over the years that I use and I embrace, and that is that life is most experienced in the contrasts. It's important for us to understand that without the rain, we don't appreciate the sunshine. And without the rain, there are no rainbows. So having enough variety in our life allows us to fully experience life. And rather than constantly feeling this need for toxic positivity and that everything has to be 78 and sunny like San Diego every day of the year, it's not. It's not. Life is full of ups and downs. We always have those ups and downs. Life is never a straight line. And we realize that when we're in the ER. If you see a straight line in the ER, that's a problem. And so it's important for us to constantly be experiencing those ups and downs emotionally and otherwise. And so embrace that. Embrace that. Allow yourself to feel those emotions fully and really be aware of that. And then work through it. Stay flexible and understand who you are and what you believe in. Don't be so rigid with things. We get into this point where we have to feel like we're controlling everything, and we're so rigid in what we're doing. If we are continuing to move in the direction that we want to go, Ambassador, you know that better than anybody. Sometimes life takes us on these weird detours that are the scenic route that is so rewarding. And it's not a straight line. It's not always about efficiency and how to get there the quickest. Sometimes it's about taking your time to get there.
Sweet, sweet. Khan, I love you. Coach Khan, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping in, my friend.
Take care, you guys.
Okay, bye-bye for now. My next guest, got to get him on here real quick because he's got a client coming up. And I'm really glad that he was able to make it. Maybe he's going to play one of his guitars. I don't know. But Ashok Bhattacharya, Ashok, thank you for hopping in. I know your time is real tough. Thank you very much.
Jenny and Ambassador Terry, thank you so much for having me on. I'm going to be very quick. And thanks to Khan for bringing up the topic of self-care, because I talk about future self-empathy. And if you look at hope as what gets lost in depression, and if you look at suicide as having two basic streams, one, a wish for death, and another one, a wish to escape an impossible situation. If you can write a letter to your future self that has the hope that is now depleted inside of you, and get that information from that version of you, so you now have, you can borrow it now, literally like borrowing money from the bank. You can borrow it now to empower your spirit, empower yourself, and put that into the world around you. Find that smile, find the rain and the rainbow and the sunlight. And that often is, I've been doing this for almost 40 years. That can begin to change things, because medications can help your brain. They don't help your mind. And your mind is telling you what you're reacting to. And if you change that mindset to something that has a tincture of hope, that changes the story. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was so on point, Ashok. I'm glad that you were able to make it, and I honor the fact that you're against the time clock. Thanks again, my friend.
Thank you, Ashok.
Wow. Two more.
Well,
I've got a South American jumper and speaking friend and colleague, Enrique Acosta Gonzalez. Thanks for stopping in, my dear friend. It's been a while. I'm glad that you made it.
Yes, thank you, Terry. Good to see you, Jenny, and glad to be here. What a talk and how opportune. Because I'll tell you, I had a blue Sunday. How about that? So, the climate around the United States is split today, right? Uh, Half of the nation is in celebration, the other half is in mourning. Another 100 million that did not vote. Well, I don't know where they are, right? But it was one of those days for me yesterday. So listening in, kind of right-sided, right? And that's one of the points that we forget in times of these blue feelings is that we don't ever consider who we're tying into. And it's so important to have not only a mechanism to tie into other people, but the group, who are you tied into? Because, and then Terry, from the military perspective, I spent over 10 years on the casualty assistance calls officer type of, environment. And I also spent about that long in the suicide prevention coordinator roles throughout commands and things like that. So I've seen both the preventive side of what blues can get you, and unfortunately the aftermath side of a completed, suicide, and both are not pretty, right? Prevention is messy because you have to dig in through a lot of things, and of course the end result is also messy. But um, I remember Dallas focusing on the leader's role on impact. Right now, look, we are all touched. If you are breathing, heart going, and you're a human, you've all been touched by the blues, some way, shape, or form. But it's important for leaders to understand that a mask is not helping anybody. So if you are in that position, that you can share a little light and hope and even a little humanity at the workplace, you are obligated to. You're obligated to. That's your role as a leader. Let your people know that you're not untouchable and that you need them. How many people are ready to help leaders and leaders are not willing to accept it because of a role? And so it's important for you to understand that. And I love Mike talking about the joy in the little things. I was listening to him and I was able to go back to that little space where a sound just made you smile, right? So it's important to understand that you need to be tied into the right environments. You need to be tied into the right people, whether you use them down the road or not. In times of blues, you got to be tied in.
Delightful.
Wonderful. It's connection over prestige, right, Enrique?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Boy, fabulous. I'm so glad you could make it. It's great to see you. Great to talk to you. And lovely comments. Absolutely lovely. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
Now I've got somebody from way down in the middle of his summer, flown in from a vacation, jumped on the computer just for us. David Ross, thank you, my friend. Glad you made it.
Harry, good afternoon. It's lovely to be here. And Jenny, good evening. It's lovely. It's been a while since I've seen you, so it's lovely to see you as well.
It's lovely to see you too.
It is just after 6 o'clock in the morning, so I'm trying to remember who I am as we speak. I'm at risk of this being a Blue Tuesday here in Australia. Blue Tuesday morning. I'm not going to talk about the issues around suicide, but Blue Mondays around your work is something that I wanted to briefly talk about. I haven't had a chance to really listen to many of your other wonderful speakers today, but boy, I could really connect with what Enrique had to say just then too. He was fantastic. I wanted to briefly share with you two anecdotes that for me highlight 3 points. And the 3 points that I think your listeners might be interested in are these. Always identify what choices you have available to you. 2, also look for where you have a sense of control over a situation or where you might have an opportunity to influence the situation. And 3, try to keep things in perspective. As difficult as that might feel when you're in a job that you absolutely hate. And speaking of jobs that I absolutely hated, many years ago, I worked in a consulting firm. I was quite a junior in the organization. We had a complete lack of leadership in this organization, a complete lack of staff development. The focus was solely on bringing in the money. And I was involved in a quite a high-profile project. And the project had been ill-defined. And imagine every day I'm coming into work and there's a lot of pressure. The client is yelling at us. The bosses are yelling at us. And how myself and a number of my colleagues responded was to believe that we had no choice in this. So we used to come in and whinge and complain. And there'd be times when, even though we had so much on our plates, we'd be sitting in each other's office complaining about woe is me, because we felt we had no choice. That was completely wrong. Fast forward about 8 years, and I was in another job with no leadership. I was by that stage managing a high-profile project for this organization. And unbeknownst to me, halfway through the project, my boss had put the project on hold. He had told other people in the company, but he had not told me. So how could I have responded in that situation? I could have, on the inside, just been complaining about how sad I am, because in the job I'd had previously that I shared with you, like Enrique, I had blue Sundays. I could feel it all around here. I could feel the pain, the stress. Imagine too that half of my work is on hold. And I don't know about any of your listeners, but if you've ever had the situation where you're in a job that's pretty secure, but you've got nothing to do, it can be pretty mind-numbing. It can be soul-sapping. So I had to focus on, in that situation, what were my choices? So I was looking for employment, but it was also choices about how I considered my work and the meaning of my work. So every day I was focusing through a journal. Every morning for 15 minutes, I'd be focusing on where I could find control in my work. And every morning I was thinking about, well, with what I had under my control, was I doing that to the best of my abilities? And every morning, I was trying to find the light in what I was doing too. So as I said at the start, you always have choices about whether you want to stay in a job or not, generally speaking. You have choices about how you can find meaning elsewhere if necessary, and always look for control. And I said at the start too, I mentioned the word perspective. I remember my grandparents were from the silent generation. They talked about making do. And I remember as a kid, they'd telling me about how someone's always got it worse than you. With that in mind, of late, while I was on holidays, I was having a conversation with a Palestinian journalist. And make no mistake, when you're talking to a Palestinian journalist about what they're seeing in Gaza, and I have those sorts of conversations with First Nations communities, I could go on and on and on. But when you're listening to somebody else in those sorts of situations, it very quickly, very sharply puts into perspective that what you are going through, if you're in a job that might at times feel like it's suffocating your soul, you quickly get a sense of, well, a lot of other people may be doing it worse for you. So I just wanted to share that with you. And the final thing I'll mention is this. I often found through my career that every time I had a horrible situation, it actually translated into something else pretty special later on. Not everything can be a gift, but boy, a lot of them, like me dealing with a lot of terrible leaders throughout my life, it, unbeknownst to me at the time, gave me the gift of learning very quickly from bad leaders and how not to do things. So they're my anecdotes. And to both of you, again, it's been so lovely to see you, and thank you so much for having me on board.
Thank you so much for making it, my friend. It's breakfast time where you are. It's almost dinner time over here, early afternoon. Jenny's in Sweden. What a three-way conversation across the globe right now. Terrific, terrific. Jenny, thoughts?
Oh, you're touching on choice, and what comes in for me is that the more we express and step into our choices in those situations, the more we discover that life is really happening for us. And it's not something that we might see in that moment, but looking back, we can discover that things have been happening for us. And I think that's very encouraging. Thank you, David.
Yep. Thanks again, David. Take care, sir.
Bye.
Janet Langren. Wow. What a conversation, my friend. What a conversation. This was just wonderful. Some thoughts.
I'm so encouraged. If there's one advice that I send with my clients is that place yourself, in that flow. If it is following that person on LinkedIn or social media, or it's reading that book or listening to that music, it's just placing yourself in that receiving of encouragement and the real stories of overcoming and the real stories of hope and growing through life and how life is so worth living. And I'm just very uplifted and grateful for everyone who joined us today.
Yeah, me too. Just special. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for those of you who are listening live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And for those that are going to be listening to it here, the recording in the future, I highly recommend you do so. There was some amazing information and stories that are uplifting and supportive. And I was just honored to be part of it, let alone got to co-host with my partner, Jenny Langren. So thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. And we really appreciate that you listened in. Bye for now.